I'm actually looking for something funny to say at the start of this video, but I can't really come up with anything, so this will do, right? Hey, what is up guys, and welcome to yet another 3D pilot video. Today we're going to take a look at UV unwrapping. So that basically means taking a 2D texture and then transforming it so that it fits a 3D model. Now I know that a lot of you come from SolidWorks, and SolidWorks doesn't really use UV unwrapping, but UV unwrapping yourself, your model yourself, is actually really important when you want to have textures that seamlessly blend over your topology. So it's basically all about projection. To project the 2D image onto the 3D model, we're actually going to take the 3D model and then cut it up into pieces along its edges until we've got a bunch of flat pieces that we can lay all flat onto our 2D texture. And that basically shows us how the 2D texture will reflect back onto the 3D model. Might sound a little strange, but I've got a little example. I think the best way to think about UV unwrapping is thinking about how you would make your model out of fabric. So imagine you've got a big piece of fabric and you want that shaped into your 3D model. Now you would have to make different cutouts, different pieces that you want to glue together at the edges. You don't want to cut too much, because otherwise you're going to have a really cut up texture in the end, like a really cut up mesh. Really cut up fabric was what I meant to say. You don't want to have too much stretching as well. You don't want the fabric to be stretching too much, because that would look really weird. And you also want to use as much of your fabric or of your texture that you had originally. So we had a look at UV unwrapping in the Raptor series already, but that was a really special case of unwrapping because we had a really complicated model that didn't really exist out of flat or singularly curved surfaces. But now we're going to look at unwrapping models that you made in Blender, but also models that you made in SolidWorks, because they have a very typical topology and they're not that easy to unwrap most of the time. So there's basically two ways to go about UV unwrapping your model. So the little example that I've got is a lever model that I got off GrabCAD. It is made by Nikhil Katkar. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it's just a really basic SolidWorks model. I took it into SolidWorks and then exported it as an STL, so we have an actual mesh. I showed how you should do that in one of my last videos, so links in the description. And then I imported that model into Blender. Now the first way is the easiest way, and that's just selecting all of your mesh and then letting the software automatically decide where to cut up the mesh. So this is really fast, it's just a couple of clicks, but it leaves you with a couple of ugly places most of the time, especially if you've got surfaces that are curved in two different directions. Then you get seams in weird places and the texture doesn't really meet up at some places. Now it might not look like a big of a problem looking at this UV test grid, but when you've got a texture, some rust or wood for example, then this ugly unwrapping can be quite a problem. Second method is a little bit harder to do and it takes a little more time to do as well, but it gives you a lot cleaner results. So you basically select the edges that you want to be cut up yourself and unwrap it that way. You might have done this for a cube once in primary school, where you had to think about how a cube would unwrap into a 2D fold, so you have to select which edges you would cut up. It's a bit of a hard thing to do, especially if you're working with really complex models, but it guarantees that you get a really clean unwrap without places that look really ugly because of the wrongly placed seams. So that's a really basic explanation of what UV unwrapping is. It's taking the 2D texture and applying it onto a 3D model by taking a 3D model and cutting it up into pieces that fit onto a 2D grid. I'm not really going to show you how to do this step by step, because there are so many tutorials doing that already. I link some in the description. You can definitely check that out if you want to learn more. The automatic method is really easy. Just go into edit mode, select all of your geometry, hit U for unwrap, and then do the automatic unwrap, and you're basically good to go. But the other method takes a little longer time. It's you need a bit of practice, but it's a great tool to use if you want to go into advanced texturing. One last tip that I wanted to give you, especially when using seamless textures, so textures that line up side to side, is that in the UV image editor you can just select all of your unwrapped geometry and scale it up and down to scale the texture on your 3D model as well. This is a really quick way to do it. There's a couple of ways to scale overall detail up and down. But yeah, that's just a quick tip that I wanted to give you. You can do it with the mapping node as well. But I suppose that if you know what I'm talking about right now, then you don't really need that tip. So yeah, anyway, there you go. So that's a little bit about how you get a texture onto a 3D model. But of course, there's still the question, what texture should you apply? Of course, when you're thinking about a wood, you get a simple diffuse texture, a color texture basically. But there's a lot more to wood than just its color. There's its shininess and the little surface details that wood has, and well, any material has. Plastics have them, stones, even metals aren't always perfectly smooth. So there's a bunch of different textures that we use to get a material to look really realistic. I'm going to talk about that in my next video, which is going to be about texture types. I'm going to give you a little example of the different textures that we use to make a material. But up till then, I just want to thank you for watching. The Blender competition is still on. Don't forget to enter your model if you haven't already. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and like the 3D Pilot Facebook page. And well, that's it for this quick video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.